Welcome to Coding Koans, the show where together we'll explore the world of software, we'll get better jobs, and we'll change the world. My name's Ian Carroll, and I'm a self-taught software engineer. On the show today, we don't know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to find out in a second, though. My guest today, as the first thing I should say, my guest today is Francesca Sadikin. She is a self-taught software engineer who specializes in the front end. She works at 8th Light, where she delivers high-quality custom software projects utilizing TDD, which is test-driven development, and SOLID design principles, which is another acronym that is too complicated to get into just this second. She uses her design background and consulting skills to help clients architect and implement the right solution for their needs. Francesca, why don't you turn on your video?
Hiya.
Hey, Francesca. Good to see you.
Yep.
Those are some nice bikes you got in the background. Do you do a lot of biking?
No, everybody asks me that, but it has not moved for like the last year and a half. Um, yeah, it's pretty much wall decoration at this point.
Well, it's good wall decoration.
hmm
Welcome to the show. We're going to do some software development in a second, but before we do that, I want a chance to ask you a few questions. So you're a self-taught software engineer like myself.
hmm
That is really cool. Now, like myself is a really weird thing to say about self-taught software engineering because no two people are going to teach themselves the same way. So my question to you is, how'd you do it?
Yeah. Um, a lot of trial and error. So what I did was like I pretty much started with free code camp where I learned just like the basic HTML, CSS, and like intermediate JavaScript. And once I like finished all their like little projects, like I was in their forums and found this community called Chingu, which there's a organizer, Chance, who takes students from around the world and puts them into groups of four, where you then build a project together in 8 weeks. So that's how I primarily learned, like through project building in Chingu. And eventually, after a few rounds of this, Chance like asked me to join their team to help build out like a platform and like help facilitate their organization. And I just spent many more months like building things with their team. Um, Again, all of this like learning by doing
Uh-huh.
um, before I finally joined 8th Light. I think my work at Chingu like definitely helped me stand out to even apply for 8th Light. So
Yeah, yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense. And I find it, without a certain amount of poetic irony or perhaps appropriateness, that the person who gave you a chance was named Chance.
Yeah. I always thought like it was his like panhandle, but it's his name. It's
This is
his
his
real name.
actual
I was
name.
like, yeah.
Wow, cool. So, but you also did the apprenticeship at Eighth Light, right?
hmm Yep.
Um, so how was that?
Yeah, I personally thought 8th Light gave me like the strong foundational base that I needed because
Hmm.
as a self-taught engineer, like I was able by the end of it, like I was able to just like build a ton of stuff, like lots of React projects. I can build anything, I see, but the code quality is probably not great. And like in my own knowledge, there's like a ton of gaps and holes in my foundational knowledge.
Hmm.
So coming to 8th Light, where they like train you from the very beginning to do TDD, test-driven development, and teaching like all the like ways to write clean code. Like so, as an example, I remember like in the very first few weeks of my time as an apprentice, my mentors were like, Francesca, you need to decouple your code. And I'm like, what does that mean? I've never heard the word decouple. Like that's just like how much I didn't know about like cleaning up your code. And um, I just think it's like exponential growth and stabilizing my knowledge and helping me build a really strong base where now I can just like tackle any sort of ambiguous like tech stack or like problem scope. I can like I have the skills to and tools to figure it out now.
So you're saying it doesn't matter what the language or the tech is. Um, you feel confident that you could just get in there and do it, right?
Yeah, eventually I will figure it out. I'll get there.
Huh. Yeah, yeah. I hear you on that because we're asked to do a lot of different things. Francesca and I work at the same job, same company at least. We're on very different clients, I believe. You're certainly not on mine. But yeah, okay. So, what did the apprenticeship give you that the that self teaching your or that teaching yourself did not give you?
Hmm. What did The Apprentice give me? It's about one, like I'd say the biggest for me was also like the soft skills that were necessary as an engineer that I like now I see like, like engineering,
So,
it's
so
beyond just
yeah, that's soft skills is one of those engineer terms. What does
right.
soft skills mean?
Like, like for example, you know, communicating expectations very quickly as an engineer. Like for example, like you're not going to make that target. So like letting your team and your managers know as early and quickly as possible, like helps smooth out the process and it's not going to like reflect as poorly on you. And then in general, also like how do you try and solve problems around you? Like when you're encountering something with your managers or with your teammate, you can a lot of people feel like, oh, like, well, that wasn't in my control. Like, I can't do anything about that. And one of the things I really like took away from my mentor group was just like the concept of like everything is in your control. You can do something about it. So like anytime I ran into a problem, they would ask like, well, what could you have done differently to have changed that? And like with enough iterations of that, like it really helped me take on that approach of like taking ownership of what's happening to you
Hmm.
and like there are things you can do to have changed any sort of situation. It's not entirely out of your control. Um, and then beyond that, yes, like the technical skills, I think the thing about self-learning is that there's so many resources online and they're free, but the problem is just that there's too much of it. And like I would say TDD is a classical example of if you try to learn
Test-driven development.
test-driven development.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of articles that explains what it is conceptually and like just like um, red green cycle, right? Like always start with a breaking test,
Hmm.
make the test pass, then keep going.
Yeah.
Everything should have a test. Um, you should be like writing tests before you implement the feature. There's like all sorts of common rules, but like what I encountered when I tried to do test-driven development by myself before the apprenticeship was like I quickly like just didn't know like how to make it less painful. Like I knew the concepts were important, but like every time I was trying to do it and reading online about how to do it, it just like felt wrong. Like I was like, it's so painful to do this. Like,
Right.
why is it so bad? And the thing the thing that was so valuable from the apprenticeship was like there were people who can guide you past that initial like pain point that a lot of people feel and they never get past this and they like show you the tips and tricks of like actually it's not a black and white rule. You don't always need to write tests, like you don't always need to write tests first. Like there
Right.
these are the cases when you don't. And like the, it's a lot more guided and advice and mentoring based off an experienced person knowing how to actually do it for reals.
Hmm.
And then like actually like same thing with solid principles, right? These are like conceptually um, a series of principles that should generate clean code. Everyone can explain what it is, but pa- past like examples that you read in the book, it's very difficult to like apply what you see and like inject it into your real code. Like a
Right.
lot of these examples are in Java, like kind of like how do you put this in React and JavaScript? Like these are just things that it helps to have someone who knows what they're doing and knows how to actually inject it in real code in their everyday code, like show you how to actually do it.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I feel you because I mean, I also went through the apprenticeship program, and yeah, you learn a lot from just being around people who are doing this, and
Hmm.
it's sort of like it's kind of a crash space in a sense. They'll let you fail a little bit so you can feel it, and then they'll sort of guide you towards the right way or a way that can work for you. I won't say that there's a right way to do things because I don't really believe that. I think there's a lot of different ways to do things, but there are certain ways that will yield results faster than other ways, and it's not always intuitive. Yeah, let me ask you the converse question then. What is it that you got out of self or teaching yourself software engineering that the apprenticeship could not provide for you?
Hmm. I think I would say like it's grit, but like essentially like everything that I did for myself and like through Chingu, it was just like like regardless of all the odds, like this will be done. Like that willpower to just like finish it to like the best of my ability
Mm-hmm.
and taking complete ownership of like what I can do, right? Like I can't, when you're self-learning, you can't blame anyone when you're like failing in certain things. Like you just have to, you're like, oh, well, like, like this person, like in the team in Chingu, like it's often the case out of four people, two people will drop. I can't control them, but I can control myself. So I pushed the project till the end and completed it. Like these are the type of like that's like the type of willpower that I'd say kind of came out from self-learning. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like complete responsibility for yourself and for your work.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. And I guess the second was just being very resourceful. You just kind of have to be very resourceful between like looking up on Google, knowing where you can look,
Mm-hmm.
and because that's the thing with the apprentices is like you're very like blessed to have all these people to ask, and sometimes like you like it's important to like know how to exhaust your own resources first before you like fall into like asking for help from someone else.
True, and there's an art to that as well because
Knowing when.
yeah, knowing exactly when to ask for help. Yeah, there's a timing thing going on with that. It's both sooner than you expect and not and you should hold off at the same
Hmm.
time.
Yeah. It shouldn't be the first thing you do is ask. You should Google first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So speaking of that, we're going to try and do one of two languages that you've never worked in before, Francesca, and I have only
Hmm.
dabbled in. Um, so the first of those is called Go, and Go is an open source language written by Google, or at least largely maintained by Google. And then the other one is called Rust, which is a similar open source project maintained by Mozilla. So both of these are maintained by two major browsers. And both of them aim to do very similar things. They're designed to be kind of like replacements for C. It's meant to be something that is both useful to get really close to the metal and really affect the computer's hardware if you need to, but can be high level enough to use it the same way you would Ruby or Python or JavaScript. Um, we're going to work on one of those. I've built one tic-tac-toe project in Go, and I've been meaning to learn Rust for forever, and have gotten through Hello World, and that's it for me. Between the two of us, we're going to be poking around in one of these two. Let me just grab pawns. No. Do you have a favorite chess piece?
Nope.
Okay.
Go ahead and choose.
Well, you know, I like the horsies. So we're going to use, let me just frame these the right way. There we go. So we have one of these. This one's going to be, if you pick this one, it'll be Go. If you pick this one, it'll be Rust. I'm not going to look at what they are. I'm just going to put them behind my back. You just tell me when to stop shuffling, okay?
Okay, you could stop shuffling.
Okay. Now, which hand?
The right hand.
The right hand is this
Wait.
one?
Yes, that one. Mm-hmm.
We are working in Rust, which is the one I know less of. All right. So we're going to use a code editor for this. You might not even need to have our screens shared because you have direct access to VS Code, which I do as well. So we're going to go into the Rust example. Are you following it?
You're not currently editing a shared document? Where are you?
What do you mean? Really? This is not shared?
Are you in the Rust Hello World?
Yes. Actually, here I'll just be in the test.
In the tests. Okay, I see you now.
Great. Okay. Cool. Let's kind of get cracking here a little bit. I know a little bit. I have a Rust book behind me on this shelf, but we can easily use the internet, which is going to be that same Rust book, but more up to date, which is another reason why sometimes it's best to use the internet and not buy actual books, unless you really love books, which I do, but that's another story. So here's our test, Hello World. So we have, looks like, what are you seeing here?
Definitely seeing, like similar syntax. We can try and break this down to test formats that we're already used to.
Yeah.
Assert equals.
Yep.
$sign. That's interesting.
$sign? Oh, you mean
sorry.
bang?
Bang.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Assert equal bang.
Right.
Hello world. Hello world. Hello. So I guess the hello world, the first one must be some sort of module, and the hello is the function.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably that seems right. The bang, I know. I'm remembering this. It means that this is a macro rather than a function per se.
I see it because I'm from JavaScript land. It's just like saying it's falsy.
Right. That would be assert equal, not.
Yeah.
But that would be weird if we were going to assert that the hello world script does not say hello world.
Hello world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. All right. So maybe we can sort of side by side this. Yeah, you mind if I share my screen? Actually, we're going to turn on some music too.
Sure.
Let's. This is some music from Made Up Music, by the way. They're the show on After Us, where Alex and Arlo are two friends of mine, but they're musicians, and they will make up a song for you on the spot based off of the suggestions in the chat, which is really kind of cool. So, yeah, actually, sure. Okay, are you seeing, so you're seeing my screen too now, but you don't need to use that. Is that distracting to you, or is that cool?
No, I'll probably just follow along. We'll do this type of pairing.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we have this. Let's go ahead and, looks like we put hello world, and we have a source and then a lib.rs. That looks like a name that's like important to have. But let's open that to the side. All right. Zoom. Let's put us over here. Okay. So this I don't think is right anymore. This is a big comment that I wrote like 3 or 4 years ago when I tried this exercise. It was working then, but you can kind of see it, right?
All right.
Boy, that's a
I
lot.
guess we could like follow along with the recommendation in this string comment is like go through line by line and see what we think this means.
Okay, well there's a pub here, which probably is important. Now here's interesting. Here's something that I'm seeing. Well, actually, let's run the tests. Maybe we can do that. I think, how do I run tests in this? Wait, there's a README. Okay. There's a help page for Rust installation. It looks like we've installed it.
Cargo test.
Cargo test. Oh, wait, I'm in the wrong directory. I need to, I think I need to go into Rust, and then into Hello World. And now from here, I think I can run cargo test. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we got an error. Supplied 0 arguments, expected 1 argument. This is an interesting. Get this error message. This is kind of cool. It's telling you on line 5. When we were giving it.
Hello world. Hello? Okay.
Supplied 0 arguments. Expected 1 argument. And then if we compare that to the hello world in the lib, we have this name, option, and string here.
So it's a typed language.
Yeah, it's definitely typed. Typed languages, for those of you who don't know, are languages where you have to supply it with the same data type if you're going to bring in arguments or variables. So if it's a set of characters, you need to call it a string. If it is if it's like a number, you need to say it's a number. Otherwise, weird things can happen if you provide a string to for a number and you have it calculate those things. It's like, yeah. Do you have a better way of describing that, Francesca, than I just did?
Nope. That's, like defining, like for example, a function defining here. It's very hard to read the syntax of option, angle brackets, ampersand string, str, but that's probably some type of coming in. The one coming out is much more obvious, where it's like the right arrow string. So that's clearly like a string is going to come out of this function.
Okay.
So.
Okay. It looks like maybe we should get rid of that option. I'm wondering if that will do it.
I wonder what that option meant. Like, what is that?
It looks like this whole thing is a variable or an argument declaration, right? It's like that's a parameter, I think.
Let's see. Googling.
Oh yeah.
Let's see.
While you're Googling that, I'm going to try some things.
Yep.
See see what happens if I just get rid of it. This is going to break some stuff because I'm still using it inside the function. But yeah, here we get some new errors. Can't find value name in this scope. Yeah, because I just deleted it. Can't find name in this scope either. Looks like it gave me the same error twice. That's interesting. But, all right, let's just get rid of this whole end thing going on here.
Enum, options is described as an enum in Rust.
Interesting. An enum.
Let's see.
Are you sure that is
that right?
That doesn't seem quite right.
Type option represents an optional value. Every option is either some and contains a value or none and does not.
Oh, okay. So it means that it should be able to come back. So if that's the case, then why is it that didn't work? Because this should still work regardless. This should. So what you're telling me is that this name option ampersand string, or I guess maybe this is some sort of a pointer or something, maybe something like that. But this should mean maybe it's an optional argument, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that if we supply it with nothing, it should say it's fine. Now this code was written about 3 years ago, so it could be that the Rust version that I'm running right now doesn't do that anymore. And the syntax has changed. It's like, speaking Elizabethan English while you're ordering your Starbucks.
Okay. Continue reading, because I do want to check what this ampersand str is.
Yeah. That might be in the Rust book too. I think there might be something like that in there. All right, I'm gonna keep playing around with this a little bit. Before I'm gonna try the dumbest way of fixing this. Let's see what happens when we do this. Let's comment out this line too. That worked. That passed the test. So just getting rid of it. Something is wrong with the syntax of it, and it's not doing what we're expecting it to do. Maybe what we should do is Google, there's only one test here, right?
Maybe we should write a second test that would capture this failure.
Perhaps, assuming that that's what we want. We want it to be able to say, hello, Bob, hello, Jenny, hello, whoever you want, right?
Yep.
But, the exorcism didn't supply us with another test. So do we want to extend the behavior beyond what they really needed? Or is it better to just delete the stuff that doesn't matter? I'm wondering if we even need to format it at this case. So this looks like a function that we can just say like return or something like that. I wonder if this will do. What if we did something like that? Oh, look. Expected a struct standard string and found ampersand string. That's interesting.
Okay, so this ampersand string.
Yeah, is different from the string. It looks like this is a string literal, and this is some other kind of string object. And they have two different versions of it. So maybe, and it says help, try using a conversion method. .toString. That's kind of useful. Let's see about that.
I would just like to know what this means exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
course.
seeing mentions in it in the like Stack Overflow, but I just want to see an official description.
Yeah, maybe if we pull up the Rust
Take a look.
docs.
There are two types of string in Rust, string and ampersand str.
Okay.
So a string is stored as a vector of bytes, but guaranteed to always be a valid UTF-8 sequence.
Okay, wait. That was a lot of words that just happened. So, all right. What we're talking about is that there are two different kinds of strings, right? One is called ampersand string. That has some sort of a technical name, right? And then there's this standard string, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so this is like the actual string object that you can operate upon, and then this is some sort of a like raw data type or something like that, maybe.
It says, okay, it's a slice. So the ampersand str is a slice that always points to a valid UTF-8 sequence
Okay, so
and can be used to view into a string.
okay, so it's a type of pointer almost. So it's pointing at a piece of data in memory, and it's going to guarantee that whatever it comes back with is going to definitely be an actual valid string, not garbage.
So like, if we understand that correctly, I am curious why return hello world. This, even though we defined it, wrote it out as a string, it still came back as a reference, right,
Yeah.
to the string and not the string itself.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's coming back as a reference to a string, not the string. Okay.
It's interesting.
All right, I'm going to get rid of some of this some of this other stuff in here, just because it's no longer relevant. Although I loved doing that, and it's nice to document those things. It's still being saved in Git. It's there. I like this let going on here. I wonder what happens if I change that. Don't do all this stuff, and maybe we don't have it. It's just. Nah, there's really no need there's no need to do this. We can, let's just see. This is just gonna, let's see if we can do it this way. Oh. I need a semicolon. Those are nice error messages, though.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine with that. Now, if we did hello world, can we declare this as an actual standard string? Is there some way to do that? Maybe it's like, the syntax highlighting says that's a thing. That's weird.
Is this the format, or is it like high colon string equals?
Like
I
that?
have no idea. This is
We're
how it looks like in TypeScript. We're just trying things out at this point.
Yeah. Expected struct.
This is it. Okay.
And it's trying to assign this to a struct.
String.
Yeah, but it's unable to do it because it still needs to convert it to toString. I'm wondering why it is that it needs to do that. Because this is assigning this, and it's saying that there's a type error now, right?
Yep.
Sure, if you can do this. Is this a thing?
Rust. Strings.
Oh, that was weird. That did something different than I expected it to, but...
What's it doing?
It says, did you expect string, curly's, fields with an R?
Huh.
Do I do this? Those would technically be fields in there, right? Missing vec.
Okay, here's another definition from another place. String literals, which is the ampersand str, are used when the value of a string is known at compile time.
Okay.
They are a set of characters which are hard-coded into a variable. So let company equals string tutorials point. That's an example. So that does explain what we're seeing here. I think we just need to learn more about like how it uses both types.
Yeah.
And when it should switch from one to another.
Yeah, and we know that there's one way of doing that. That's to do dot to underscore string. And that will work. Should work. Yeah, that works. But I feel like there should be another way of doing this. Rather than just declaring the literal and then turning it into this, could we, you know, sort of, I don't know, declare it the, you know, by instantiating like the string itself rather than creating a pointer and then saying, hey, turn this into a thing that we can use. I guess that's kind of the same thing though, isn't it?
Yeah, so another section about the string object is like, the string object type is not a part of the core language. It is defined as a public structure in standard library pub struct string. So it's not like a native thing the way the ampersand str is.
Okay. Do we need to import it?
No, I mean, the way you're using it now, it is like, this is how it's being used. I am still confused about why, like, a function should return string versus an ampersand str, right? Like, what's the difference when you're going to use it next?
Yeah.
From.
Oh, I effing love whiskey, by the way, who's a user who's watching the show says, I'm feeling the Koans. And that's correct. Yeah, we are letting the code give us a mystery and then trying to puzzle our way through it. And yeah, it's kind of cool. So, all right, so we've got this thing. Maybe, what was I doing before this? I was looking it up, right? Okay. Maybe I can just try
Googling.
There's standard string in Rust. Oh, look. Looks like you can also do it as string : from and then stick it in.
Most common string type that has ownership over the contents of the string. That's a very loaded phrase. Ownership over the contents of the string.
Okay, ownership is something that does happen in Rust, and I know a little bit about that, but not very much. Basically, instead of ownership is Rust's version of scoping. So that, and there's a reason to do it. I just can't remember exactly what the reason is anymore. But if you were to go through the Rust book bit by bit, I remember seeing it in there the last time I went through it, like a couple of months ago. But yeah.
I found another section in Stack Overflow that talks a little bit more about the difference. I guess string is used when you need to own or modify your string data, and str is an immutable sequence of UTF-8 bytes of dynamic length somewhere in memory. So it's saying like, since the size is unknown, one can only handle it behind a pointer. This means that str most commonly appears as &str, a reference to that data, and you can only view into the data. So I guess if you're mutating the string, you would use string versus str.
And it looks like you can also describe it as a vector. And here it is right here as a vector. This is interesting. You can make a sparkle heart. I'm fascinated by this. Can we do this? No, we can't, but we can unwrap it. Okay.
I'm just gonna pass you this link.
Okay.
Which I think it's helpful, but still like a lot of terms that I'm not familiar with.
What if we don't type this? Will it just implicitly do it? Give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Yeah, it doesn't know what sparkle heart is, because that doesn't exist in this context. This is just called hi. Okay. Look!
It did it!
It created a sparkle heart by using this magic thing, followed by that magic thing. Well, that was fun. Anyway, that was an interesting diversion. You were showing me something, though. So it looks like toString is not the only way we can do this. There's a few others. But did you send that to me through
Zoom chat.
Zoom chat? Okay.
Should I send it somewhere else?
No, that's fine. I can grab that. Where's my share chat? Okay, so let's see here. String is an immutable sequence. So immutable means that they won't allow those values to change, and the values to get swapped out down the line. So mutation doesn't really happen in Rust. Instead, what happens is that something gets destroyed and something gets replaced by the thing that was destroyed, and that gets passed down. It's another way of sort of trying to keep things straight. So it's a sequence of UTF-8 bytes. Okay, UTF-8 being, one way of encoding characters in a string. Of dynamic length, meaning length smaller or larger, somewhere in memory. Since the size is not known, you can only handle it behind a pointer, because otherwise you'd need to define the exact size of the string, right? Could be a few words like hi, how are you, or it could be the complete works of William Shakespeare. So in order to deal with the fact that it could be any length like that, it's going to be sitting behind a pointer. And in this case, this is how you define a pointer in Rust. Pointers being a reference that points to a spot in memory. So those don't really happen very much in JavaScript. But it's the same sort of thing that would happen a lot in C. Okay, I'm getting some things back from I effing love whiskey, and then maybe he's got some questions here. By the way, I effing love whiskey is also a show on Outpost 13, and you can see it Saturdays or Sunday. Check the schedule, and you'll see. It's a show where Andrew Pierce and Joseph Limbaugh have a guest, and they drink whiskey and talk about different flavors in whiskey. It's delightful. Let's see here. I effing love whiskey says the ampersand returns a reference or pointer instead of a string of characters. No? Yes, correct. It returns a reference or a pointer, not a string of characters. More efficient to pass a 4-byte or 8-byte reference around rather than the number of the bytes of the string. Yeah, that is true, and it also means that you can point to something that is dynamic on the other side of it without having to define what that is. Only the owner can create and destroy and likely modify the object. Yeah, so that's where ownership comes in. Like owner meaning like this function owns this string. Mm-hmm. So nothing else can get in there and change it without the owner is the only one who can really do that. So it's a way of making sure that things don't change as they're getting handed down the line to other things.
So I guess in this case, just to make sure like I understand it, or like we understand, because this function is returning a string type, it's like you're passing back something that the next function can mutate this string because it's passing ownership. And then is that true? And if we were to say that the return type was an ampersand str, so like it was a reference instead, it's still immutable. You would only just get a reference to it. Is that anywhere correct?
I think that sounds close. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so string dereferences to a string pointer, and that views the string's data. So it's separating out the implementation from the thing that points to it, and we're just getting a pointer when we just write hello world. But when we write standard string, if we write string : from that, then we get it. So
can we check really quickly if we change the return type to be the reference string, like whether in the test we should still see hello world? It's still retrieving.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's gonna like completely mess it up.
Hold on. We start with this string from. Okay, this works. But you were saying change this to ampersand string and just call this directly.
Right. I just want to see like what is the result of this function, like in the test, whether when we just return hello world. Yep.
Can we return it as a pointer?
Or what that looks like. Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah. Let's see what this thinks it is.
Expected named lifetime parameter. Help, this function's return type contains a borrowed value, but there's no value for it to be borrowed from. Okay.
Huh.
So it looks like we need to do something like that. I don't know exactly what that means, but let's just try it. So it wants it to be that. Okay, that passes. It's still saying that. Okay, so this is interesting because this is another pointer over here on this end, on this code, right? But it's still saying that this is equal to this if it is this, or if it's a string. Interesting.
So that colon static is doing something.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Here. Yeah.
Oh, here's a warning, by the way. It's letting us know that you have an unused variable, right? Because we short-circuited that. Yes, I effing love whiskey. I will be on your show this Saturday at 5:30, and I won't be late. And yes, I am actually going to be a puppet in the show, miming the voice of whoever is actually drinking the whiskey, not drinking any whiskey myself, but making the puppet look like it's drinking whiskey. So, yes, that's going to be happening. Yeah, that'll be Saturday at 5:30. That's got to be a weird thing to just randomly say in the middle of us, pair programming on this. What do you think, Francesca?
Gotta roll with it.
Yep. Okay. But this is fascinating that it's fine with that as another option. But I feel like this is still better. Let's kind of wrap this up a little bit here, because we still have a little bit of today I learned stuff to do. Instead of returning hello world, let's just do this. We'll do this inline, because there's really no need for us to declare this right here, except just to have fun with the syntax for a second. Know how to declare variables, but okay, that works. All right, well, that'll be good enough. Get to it. So I have you in my Git Duet thing. Have you ever done Git Duet before, Francesca?
Nope, never heard of it before.
It's a little tiny program that allows you to both get credit in pair programming sessions. So if I do this, it puts us both in here. It puts you as the author and me as the committer.
I see.
And then I can do Git Duet. Oh wait, I need to git add. Git add -p. So we got rid of all of these comments, and we changed this to just this instead of all this junk that we had before. That's the only thing we changed. Okay. That's too many lines. There we go. Yeah. Nope, not there. I don't know. What do you think for a commit message? Make
Hello world. Is this by project or the whole
yeah,
exorcism?
It's one giant repo for all the exorcism exercises.
Pass the test in Rust, I guess.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to be like, which hello world, right? In fact, let's go ahead and put Rust right at the beginning of that so that someone doesn't have to read through all of it if they don't need to. Rust make hello world pass the test in. Wait, that's weird. Let's go ahead and just put a little comment in here. What are some other things that we learned in here? String is a pointer. String is some sort of struct, right? That's ampersand string.
Has to do with ownership. It's making me think it could be changed, like mutable. And ampersand string, because it's a reference, it's immutable. Possibly.
Mm.
It has something to do with ownership. Right. Something to do with ownership.
Yeah. What else? Cat Goes Moo says Rust. Yeah, that's right. We're working on Rust. And we're just barely sort of digging into it a little bit. Something to do with ownership. We'll look that up in the book. Oh yeah, and Yagni, you ain't gonna need it. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Git push. Well, at least we're passing that test. Okay, cool. So I'm going to stop sharing now. and let's talk about what we learned. Hold on a second, let me just turn off this music. There we go. So, Francesca, what did we learn today?
Um, yeah, Rust. There's a lot just from looking at a simple string and like there are two different types of strings.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, there's a lot to learn.
And yeah, both of them pass the test when we give it, a pointer
Mm-hmm.
to what string is. It seems to
Mm-hmm.
say that that's equal either way, but there's different ways in which we operate on it somehow. Something under the hood
Right.
there. Um,
Something.
yeah, yeah. Rust is designed to be, you can access low-level stuff like that you can't. It does it without garbage collection, apparently, and it also does it uh, without uh, without any cost for the abstractions, um, which is a pretty big deal. So we can abstract the code without and not worry about it costing us in performance when we do so, which is really kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering like when this is used, like probably typical web apps probably don't need like this level of low level handling,
No,
maybe?
but you can use it in a high level sense with a web app. And let's say
Mm-hmm.
that you've got an IoT device. Let's say that you've got a drone, and the drone is being directed by people accessing it via a website. The interface layer between that drone's low level, like rotate the fans at this rate, at that rate now, stabilization and things like that to go along with high level commands coming out from users.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, depending on what portion of the code you're working on, it means that someone who does embedded software could work along with somebody who's a web developer. So we could have internet robots that actually prowl the streets and clean up messes, or, um, I'm going to think of positive things that internet robots could do, because much like riding a bicycle, what you what you think about is what's going to end up, where you're going to go as far as code is concerned. There's a lot of things you could do with this that are really kind of cool.
Yeah. It's just giving me like flashbacks to when I tried C++ and how much I hated that. It's like, oh God, references and
Details, all those,
pointers and
yeah,
addresses. That was very hard to learn because I didn't, I think at that time, like the term address was explained to me as a metaphor. So I just kept thinking it was a metaphor. And it's like, nope, it's the real term, address. I was like, so confusing. Um, anyways, yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, it's this is a piece of software that kind of does both of those things.
Hmm.
Um, at least the error messages were really helpful. You
Yeah.
could they were directing us how to do things without us necessarily needing to look up what it meant. It's
Right.
not
They were
right
like,
away.
here's how to fix this error pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was useful. Um, okay, let me ask you a couple of big questions.
Mhm.
So, you taught yourself software engineering. You have been a software developer for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bit over 2 years.
right. Um, doing it full time. What do you think is the most important thing to remember about software development or being a software engineer?
I think the most important thing is to think beyond just like what you're building. Like it's not everything isn't about, just coding and tech. All of this exists to serve like a greater like goal
Yeah,
for your business or for some other reason, right? Like you need to like lift your perspective from just technical coding and like code quality and doing perfectly here and like move it up and make sure that, like you're also considering everything that the overall company and your overall purpose is trying to do. It's just a tool to
Right.
get you to your goal.
Much like writing could be. I've sometimes used this analogy. It's like what you're saying resonates really deeply with what I'm thinking as well, which is that software development is about people, not about software. Software is a
Hmm.
means to an end, just the same way that writing a happy birthday note to your grandma is about your grandma. It's not about the paper and the pen or the ink that you're using or the syntax and the grammar of what it is. So yeah, I'm seeing that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So likewise, if someone wanted to get started with software development, having done it now
Hmm.
and having the value of hindsight, where would someone start?
I think it's like when you mean by where would someone start, like fully new to programming
Yeah,
completely.
yeah. Let's say that they're completely okay. Well, maybe answer that question the way that you feel it would be useful to somebody. Maybe we've been asking that on the channel for someone who doesn't know anything. But let's say where do you turn it from a hobby into I'm going to do
Hmm.
this full time?
Yeah, like I'd say a lot of people kind of like know where to go for the very beginning, right? Like there's Code Academy, Free Code Camp,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of places to help you at least learn the basics. And then that's kind of where people have a hard time to really get their foot in the door. Like there's a huge gap here that's
Yeah.
very ambiguous and gray, and you're like, don't know how to get here. And I think it's several parts, right, to really improve on this is one, like the technical skills, like pick something and go deep into it. Like I think like have instead of breadth of knowledge, depth of knowledge in something like front end, back end, React, or like Ruby on Rails, something that allows you to really build that knowledge, maybe like by building a lot of real projects, not
Mm-hmm.
just like hobby projects, but something that like real people are going to use. Like just get somebody to use it and get feedback and like create things. That would help technically. And then the other part is really like networking, like going to all the meetups and like meeting other people. Like you're going to learn a lot from other people. Like and they can help you, right? Like if you're stuck. And they're also like as you're building with them or like asking them for questions, like they're also people that you can connect to when you're trying to find a job.
True.
Because fundamentally, you're probably more likely to find a job through someone you know, through people you meet at meetups
Yeah.
versus like hard like black hole applying.
Yeah, yeah, I can't agree more. Yeah, in fact, how I got involved with Eighth Light was because I went to a meetup that was hosted at their office. Without that connection, I wouldn't have. I would have just been just firing off resumes in the dark on the internet, and that got me absolutely nowhere. So yeah, I agree with you. Um, Go find people, and that's really hard in the middle of a pandemic to actually go to a meetup. But
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a digital version of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, like for example, Los Angeles, they're still hosting their Hack for LA meetup
Mm-hmm.
where, they put together people in LA to build projects for like the government, the local government. So there's like a real use case and situation and client here that you're going to be working in a team. So getting that team experience and
Yeah.
workflow to build something together. So that stuff like that, those are really valuable, right? Where you can build something real, you can put it on your portfolio, you can own something to put on your resume, and then like you're also learning all of the workflows that are necessary as a developer because developers don't work by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, you got a point about that. Just we don't work by ourselves.
Mhm.
Cat Goes Moo is here in the channel, and he didn't have a subscription, so now he does. Congratulations, Cat Goes Moo. Yeah, I guess that's probably pretty much all we've got for the show today. We learned a whole bunch about, we were expecting to maybe do more, but that's always the case with software engineering, isn't it? You can always think further down the line than what you can do in a day. So, cool. All right. Well, I have some people to thank before we end the stream. My production liaison is Matt Pittner. My designer is Aaron Harvey. He has a show on Outpost 13 called Infinite Trek. That's on Saturdays. My marketer is Lucas Vanosic. He has a show called Two Liars, which is a game show on Outpost 13. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m. Oh, speaking of Infinite Trek, I'm wearing this Star Trek kind of outfit thing going on here, and the reason is because we're going to be having a virtual cocktail party with some of the actors from Star Trek on this channel this Sunday from 3 to 6 Pacific time. So stop in and say hi then. Who else is in this channel? So my bot master is Cody Bushy, and he has a show called An Actor Unprepared, where he and has a guest writer, a guest director, and a guest actor, and he puts them all together and has them make a piece based off of the writer's pre-written thing. And so that's kind of cool. Very cool, actually. I really enjoy that show. And up next is Made Up Music, and that's who does the music for our show as well, Alex and Arlo. They will create a song from the suggestions in the chat right there on the spot. I like to listen to them while I code because it's really nice to have someone else doing something creative by your side. So yeah, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So Francesca, thank you very much for being on the show. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back next week with someone else and more and more stuff coming your way. So many cool things. All right. Now, wait. Here's the awkward exit. Where'd it go? Where'd OBS go? There it is. Haha! I found it. I found it.
The only steps I can, steps too high. I'm just a man. If you see my face at your hour of death, don't shake. Don't shake in your boots, no, don't you fret. Cause I'm gonna take you down where the beats are pumping. Down to hell where the lava's jumping. In the mountain, lava's jumping. Down to hell where the lava's jumping.
Let yourself fall, cause you'll only get higher. Let yourself drop like a beat on fire. Living half dead, so you might as well drop. The f***ers can't find you.
steps are steps too high. I'm just a man. I walk his life. The only steps I steps too high. I'm just a man. When you start saying a mountain is a mountain, a river is a river. Well, living Zen, a mountain is not a mountain, a river is not a river. After learning Zen, a mountain is a mountain,